Right, welcome back. Right, we're not getting a shaking sound. I'm a little concerned here.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's do this thing, as they say.
That's a pretty pathetic
that's
martini.
all you get, you're driving.
Yeah, right.
Okay, welcome back to Late Night with Dr. Paul. I am here with author, CBC personality and commentator, and former finance minister, Mr. Graham Steele. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here.
Glad to hear it. Graham, you wrote this lovely book, What I Learned About Politics. And I'm sure it's not coincidence that on the cover you're looking over your shoulder. What prompted the book?
I was in politics for 15 years, and especially towards the end, I thought, you know, this is not working. This is not. It's not good democracy. It's not good decision making. It's not good governance. But very few MLAs write about their experience in politics. When I got into politics, there was no manual. There was nothing to look at to say, here's how you do the job. So what I wanted to do was leave behind a record of my time in politics as kind of a warning to people coming afterwards, or if not a warning, a kind of user manual, and say, this is how politics works.
Not only do people typically not write, there's been literally thousands of MLAs before you, and I don't think there's been anything remotely like this in terms of its detail and its earnest.
But you know what it is, Paul, is that there's a political culture. There's kind of this way of doing things that you don't have to be in politics very long to buy into it. And part of the political culture is this culture of secrecy about, you just don't talk about what goes on behind closed doors. And it might work for the politicians, but I don't think it works for the public. So what it means is that every decision that matters is made behind closed doors in a room that the public's not admitted to. So what I wanted to do in this book is open those closed doors and say, this is what your politicians are thinking. This is why they're doing what they're doing.
That's a very valid point. And I know myself, if it weren't for some hidden microphones, I would have no idea what's going on. But I digress. You're a very educated man, Dalhousie Law, Rhodes Scholar, and I don't mean this to sound as flippant as it is, but what attracted you to politics in the first place? I mean, you must have had some inkling that there's headaches, there's challenges, there's an intrusion on an attempt at a private life.
I don't think I really did know. Look, I've been interested in politics ever since I was a kid. I was born and raised in Winnipeg. I used to deliver the Winnipeg Free Press around the frozen streets of my neighborhood. And you know, when I was 10 years old, I was reading the newspaper as I went, and this was in the Trudeau era, and you were reading about some pretty substantial people. It just seemed that that's where the action was. That's where the decisions were made. These were people of real ability and substance. And so you grow up thinking, hey, maybe I could do that when I grow up. And so when I got into politics, you know, most politicians say, oh, I wanted to make a difference, something really vague and meaningless like that. But honestly, I thought, if there's a decision-making table somewhere where people are making decisions that affect me and my family and my community, I want to be there. I want to be part of that decision-making table. So that's why I got into politics.
You wrote in your book that the longer you stay in politics, the dumber you get.
Yeah.
So after 15 years, where does that leave you? Are you down to my level now?
No, it leaves me pretty stupid. Look, obviously, when I write something like that, it's pretty flippant, right? But there's a serious.
I took it literally.
Yeah. You're a tough interviewer. But there's a serious point behind it, which is that when you get into politics, there's a certain way of thinking and acting and talking, which is not normal. But it becomes so normal that you forget that that's not the way normal people think and act and talk. It's a way of surviving in the political jungle. And that's what I mean by getting dumber the longer you stay in politics, is it just becomes more routine to act in this totally abnormal way.
I can only presume you expected a strong reaction, at least from some circles, when you released this book. Was there anything in particular that really surprised you from colleagues or opposition?
You know, when you're writing a book like this, you really have no idea who's going to read it. You sit in front of your computer, and I write early in the morning. The house is dark, it's cold. You're sitting, and you're thinking to yourself, "Is anybody going to read this?" And the publisher, the first print run was 2,000, and I think they would have been thrilled to sell 2,000. The first 2,000 were sold in a week, and so I think what was surprising and gratifying was there's a real hunger, a real desire for people to understand their government, what's really going on in their government. People want their government to work for them, but right now government seems something distant, something that's done somewhere else, it's done in office towers in downtown Halifax, whereas our government's supposed to belong to the people. And so the surprising thing, I think, was just how popular the book was. We're now at about 8,000 sold, and by any standard, that far exceeds what anybody thought. But it's really because people are looking for something like this to help them understand better and participate better, because they know their government's not working for them the way it is right now.
The reaction that you've seen most frequently, is it more, "I read your book, yeah, that's what I thought, thanks for confirming that," or "Holy shit, I had no idea"?
Yeah, probably more of the former, where people say, "Well, we kind of sort of suspected this was what was going on in the back rooms, but this is the first time we've had a first-hand account from somebody who was there, so thanks for confirming it." Now, the reaction that I get sometimes that I don't particularly like is when people call it cynical. I don't think the book is cynical. I think the book is honest. I think it's straightforward. It's not cynical to be realistic. It's not cynical to say this is the way things really work.
If I say it's cold in this room, I'm not being cynical, I'm just telling you what it is.
Yeah, exactly. You're just being realistic and describing the temperature, and that's what I'm trying to do.
If I say to you, your martini's running low, I'm not being cynical.
Yeah, actually, thanks. I should take another sip.
Overall, you really described in your book the average politician, I think, being a well-meaning person who finds that they're over their head and at the same time sort of hamstrung by partisanship, and consequently there can be some dysfunction. How do you fix that?
Well, see, that's the problem. I thought that the first step in doing something about our dysfunctional government is simply describing it, because, as you were saying before, there's not very much out there like this. Just saying this is the way it really works. What we do about it, that's a much tougher question, because this is a political culture, and it's like any culture, artistic culture, musical culture, any culture. Culture means it's wide, it's deep, you don't just snap your fingers and change it overnight. But the only real conclusion that I came to is it's not going to work to say to our politicians, hey, wake up, this has to change. It's going to change when the voters stop voting for politicians who act this way. So I think the responsibility is really with the voters. That's really easy to say, but it's hard to say to voters, you need to be better at your job as a voter.
Who, besides everybody, who would you most like to see read and buy this book?
There's some people who are political junkies. They would read anything that any politician writes, no matter how good or bad it is. That's a really small group. There's another group of people who, no matter what you do, will never be interested in politics, will never vote. They don't care, or they're disenchanted, or they just feel it's got nothing to do with them. I'm aiming for the group in the middle, the people who don't consider themselves to be political junkies, but really care about their community and want to make sure their government works. That's the audience that I was aiming for when I was writing it, and those are the people who are buying the book, and it's so gratifying to hear back from those people saying, you have helped us understand better how our government works and what it is that we need to do about it.
Well, we've learned firsthand that you've helped Wayne Mason decide to stay in municipal politics, so thank you for that. I'm curious, what are you writing for a sequel? Are you going to try to grab a couple of terms as an MP and then?
No, the next book is a murder mystery.
Is it?
Set at Province House. There's a premier who's been in office way too long. He gets bumped off. There's a big demonstration outside, so nobody can leave the building. The premier is found dead, everybody's a suspect because it's politics. And so you get to tell a different kind of story in a different kind of way in a fictional setting about what's really going on in politics. It was fun to write a book like this, but I want to do something totally different for the next one.
Does your fictional book involve a martini drinking talk show host? Because that'd be really exciting for a lot of readers.
The only thing I've really decided is that the murder mystery is solved by a very handsome and debonair finance minister who tells everybody who did it and then walks upstairs and delivers a balanced budget. That's the way the book ends.
Oh, that's a given. Your book's been on the shelves for a while, still selling very well, as you point out. Have you gotten much backlash from colleagues, people saying, why are you sort of lifting the veil here, or
look,
don't worry about it?
Look, Paul, there's a little bit of that. I said there's a culture of secrecy in politics. There's a handful of people who really wish I would just keep my mouth shut and not talk about this stuff anymore. But I have been surprised by the number of my former colleagues even who've said, thank you for writing this. It's really important. You've told me some things that were going on in the back rooms that I wasn't aware of. Because look, the NDP government was a long time in the making. We were thrown out after one term. A lot of New Democrats were saying to themselves, what happened here? How did this happen? Why did this happen? And my book, I think, has helped people understand a little bit, start developing that story that we tell ourselves about what did we do wrong, what do we need to do to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you dropping by today. I read your book, thoroughly enjoyed it, and I encourage everybody to go to your local bookstore, go online, or if necessary, go to the library, I suppose, and have a read.
Thanks, Paul. I really appreciate the invitation.
You're very welcome.
Cheers.
Hopefully we'll see you back again sometime. Next time we're going to welcome Black Business Initiative CEO Mike Wise.